Hi, everybody. Welcome on a Saturday afternoon. I hope you can hear me. Let me go over to the comments and see if anybody's here yet. Nope, no comments yet. 10 people. Nice. Considering I didn't do an actual official stream reminder video, I've been putting those reminders with a Thursday or Friday video. And because this stream is on Sunday, I put the video out Friday. And the Saturday streams I put out Thursday to give people a couple of days, if they're interested, to find out about it if they don't know already and check it out. So I hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to start with a public service announcement. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about my big score with gel cyanoacrylate glue, sorry. And it was Oohoo extra thick gel. And so I bought a bunch of it. And this week I did some fragging, and I'm here to tell you, don't use it. I don't believe it's dangerous in the reef. However, it does not cure quickly, for one thing. It does not cure underwater, for another thing. It stays flexible. And the gel isn't really thick. It's thicker than normal glue, but it's not as thick as, say, the dollar store crazy glue gel or super glue gel. So that was kind of a dud, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sell it off on probably eBay, and because it is ridiculously expensive when you go to buy 2 or 3 tubes, so I will just resell it, charge shipping, and people will get a deal on the glue. They'll just essentially pay the shipping. So yeah, so that was kind of a dud. So I thought I'd let you know that, because I don't want anyone going out and buying a bunch of the stuff and then cursing me out because it doesn't work. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just that it doesn't have the characteristics I would prefer in a reef tank, because if you glue a coral down, you want it to stay there. And you don't want the glue itself to be flexible and let go. So, oh, hey, Phil, Reefkeeper's here. Yay. Thanks for coming by, Phil. So there's that. The other thing is, this week, that's what I did, was frag. I had hoped to bring the fish upstairs and put them in this tank. And just the way the week went, it just didn't work out, because I want to do it at night. So basically, after lights out in this tank, we would probably have to do that around 10 o'clock at night, and then wait and put them in here, I don't know, 10:30, quarter to 11. So that just didn't work out for the week. We had a crazy week with babysitting and all kinds of other stuff. But I did get fragging done. So I started removing coral from the pillar of rock that's in the 150 that has the giant green coral on top, the Montipora hirsuta. I removed that. I should upload a picture for you guys of the frags that I got, because there's quite a lot of them, 25 altogether. And once I got over the swearing and being pissed off because the glue didn't stick the way I needed it to, it was fine. Let me see if I can find a picture real quick. There's a good one. Yeah, I always take pictures of this stuff because you never know when you're going to need it. And there it is. I'm just going to real quickly upload it so that I can show you. There it is right there. Come on, fella. Get her going. There we go. Okay, so the Montipora hirsuta is kind of a branching and crusting Monty. It's this particular one is neon green with neon green polyps. The color here is not as vivid as it is to the eye under blue light. And actually, this is one of the ones that's really bright, even under not blue light. On the right there is an example of one of the branching frags, and then right in the center is an example of a pretty large piece with some branches sticking out. It has a really interesting growth pattern, and I've seen it described as elkhorn. I don't believe that's what it is, just because of the way it grows. When I first got it, it was sold to me as an elkhorn, but it doesn't have the same type of growth habit. That's the best way I can think to describe it. Um, so yeah, so 25 of those, and they're in the observation tank now, just healing up and maybe encrusting a little bit. Oh my God, we got Alex here. Hey, T40, at work listening in. Nice, thanks for that, T. Let's bring Alex in, rescue me. You're going to get pretty bored listening to me all afternoon, and my voice is starting to go. I had a hard time making that video on Thursday because I like the number of times that I did over and over and over again. It was just ridiculous. Anyway, how are you, Alex?
Oh, taking a breather for a few minutes because I just got done putting the second coat of epoxy on 4 of the top aquarium brace beams in the garage. And it's a very hot and humid day, so the full body Tyvek suit was
Oh,
not very
good.
much fun.
Holy
So
cow.
I am now moving into the basement now where I could start to get ready for the next fun stage of this, because I got quite a bit of progress done actually on Thursday.
Right. Hey, so have your neighbors come by and given you weird looks yet? Like, I'm assuming your neighbors mostly know the crazy that's going on over there. We get the blue light question all the time because it's right out the front window, and now all of our neighbors know, and some of them have been in to see the tank.
A couple of my neighbors that are on either side of me are very much aware, and one across the street, and there's a couple that I've talked to, but I think I've only had one neighbor was like, "Are you done with the really smelly stuff? Because that was really awful." And I was like, "Yes, I'm done with the fiberglass." And they're like, "Thank you."
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
but that was, I'm so happy to be done with fiberglass.
I bet. So was
So,
there any point at which you wondered whether you'd made the right decision going with the fiberglass? Like, what other options would you have considered when you started out?
that there really isn't anything that substitutes what it does. So,
Yeah.
it it's not, it does have a factor of waterproofing to it, but it is more about adding strength and rigidity to the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, more so for the top aquarium brace beams, they probably benefited the most from it. The bottom of the tank, the bottom seal beam, probably not as much benefit. But I mean, the thing is pretty darn crazy strong now. And then
Mm-hmm.
the epoxy is actually, the epoxy has been a kind of a breath of fresh air because it's so much easier to do.
So you did the hard part first.
So the fiberglass was okay. So if anyone's watched my videos for a long time and you saw my previous build, I painted a lot of stuff and I hate painting.
Mm-hmm.
And the paint, for the most part, in the previous builds, other than some light splashing, was completely ineffective at protecting the wood.
Mm-hmm.
When it got high saltwater exposure, it literally just peeled off.
It eats away at it, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, well, there's no point in continuing this. So with this build, that's why the stand and stuff, I was like, there's not really anything I could do to the stand. The bottom of it anyways, if it gets that much salt water on it to where it's going to damage the wood,
Yeah.
something catastrophic is happening.
You got bigger problems.
So not going to be something I need to worry about. The humidity itself, even with the paint, that doesn't stop it from entering the wood and doing some minor expansion contraction.
Yeah.
The epoxy, that is the way to go to seal the wood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm just doing that in the areas where I have high humidity exposure and stuff. It'll all get epoxy.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than doing that. A little more pricey, but I don't have to worry about it ever being a problem, because once it's on there, it's not going to come off in most areas that I'm concerned about. The only place I could see it is, maybe where I'm constantly, working on the top beam or something, there'd be a little wear over time. And even that's I never had a problem in the previous tanks.
Yeah.
So
Cool. So where are you now, in the fish room? Or are you in
I'm
your
standing in
basement?
the basement. So here, let me flip my camera because
Are you?
you're gonna get the first time anyone seeing it this way.
Ooh, premiere
So
reveal.
hold on,
Yikes.
let me change my camera.
Hey,
Hopefully I don't.
Peter M. Peter M is here from Croatia. Welcome. Atkins Nature Aquariums. Hey, reefers, new sub. Been watching the monster tank build on binge. It's really taking shape. Love it.
All
Awesome.
right. So you're ready? This is the first time
Okay,
anyone's
here we
seen this.
go. Drum roll. Oh my God. And the horizontal pieces of wood are essentially the top of the glass. And then
Yep.
above that
So
is the canopy.
the glass is going to be up to about here.
Yeah,
So this is the rough height. It might be up a little bit more, down a little bit more, but
right.
that's the other 4 beams for this are in the garage with fresh coat of epoxy. So these are probably going to be the last ones to get epoxy, but look at that.
Oh boy.
I'm going
That's
to,
wow, shiny.
well, today's job, you see, you can see a lot of the fiberglass still showing through in some
Sure.
spots.
Yeah, yeah.
So today's fun job is I need to sand all of this with 60 grit sandpaper,
Oh
the
man.
whole thing. The whole bottom edge here needs to be sanded with 60 grit sandpaper. And then walk where I can get down again. It's so nice to be able to walk in this and not have to worry about fiberglass.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then this entire 6-inch beam here for the entire perimeter that I could see also needs to get at least a little rough sanding, not much because it's already roughed up. And then I'm going to apply a second coat of epoxy on the bottom.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to coat the top and side of this beam with epoxy too. And also I need to cover the outside of this with epoxy on the whole perimeter too. So
if you're working above your head like that, is it drippy?
it does. I never sanded from here, so you can see there's a couple of little.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
Yeah.
yes, I did make a bit of a boo-boo when I was epoxying the canopy, which I'm happy is done because this was by far the worst part of epoxy because
I
of,
bet.
well, 2 things. One, it's drippy. Um, it does hold really well, but you got to be careful with how much you put. So
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
when you thicken it up or use it thicker, it still gets a little drippiness.
Yeah.
And I was trying to apply it kind of heavy in some spots. Like here, it's drippy because I was trying to get into these cracks and crevices to get them done as best I could.
And then it oozes out of your brush.
Yeah, so you get some drips down below, and I had the bottom cover with plastic because I did not want the drips getting on here. I wanted this to be a full coat, and originally I was going to do this first, but I ran out of fiberglass resin, so I used the time I had and said, let's get this done. So, but no, the not so fun part about this that I made a bad boo boo one night was I was wearing my Tyvek suit and everything, and I was all happy and going, and I kind of forgot to put my hood on,
Oh dear.
and I got done with, I don't know, I think I did this over like a couple days the first coat, and I think the second day I did like 2/3 of the tank because I really hated this job.
Mm-hmm.
And I got done and I went to my bathroom and looked in the mirror because I was like, I think my hair touched the plastic up here a few times, but that's it. And no, I had a stripe down the center of my head like a big old skunk.
That's
And
hilarious.
then I started panicking, going, "Oh no, what little hair I have left. Um, what am I going to do?" So I literally isopropyl alcohol cleans this stuff up, but luckily it had not gotten past the time of
Ah.
cure.
Uh-huh.
So I literally dumped isopropyl alcohol in my hair.
Oh
Uh,
man.
luckily, I did not have any little scratches on my head, or I would have probably been screaming like a little baby. So,
Or wait, or not noticed it until it had started to cure and stuck to your skin.
well, and this stuff actually comes off a lot better. The fiberglass resin, I had a few instances where a little got on me. That stuff was not easy to clean.
Oh,
So, unfortunately, it got stuck in my arm hair or anything. I had to more or less cut it out.
yeah.
Uh, and it gets in like acetone evaporates so quickly, and you don't really want to use that on your skin.
No, not if you can
Uh,
avoid it. Yeah.
so yeah, only a little bit of that though. So the pond armor is a lot more forgiving in that sense. So, but I got a pretty good coat on the bottom, and so now it's just rough up sanding time, and then a recoat on here. I'm probably going to lay it down pretty thick.
Hmm.
Um, it should take a lot less um, epoxy to coat it this time too. Now that that initial coat's in, and a lot of the texture of the fiberglass has been kind of pulled out because of the res or the epoxy going over the top.
Right.
So you could see some areas where I had excess here towards the end of the first round, so I laid it on super thick here. So uh, I'll watch it when I put the second round on this. In these areas that are already nice and thick, I'm probably gonna back away from them and not use quite as much. But like here, there's
Yeah.
definitely, you know, a need.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hey, Andrew Hudson. Glad you could make it. And there's Kathy B. Hello. Hillbilly Reefer. Hey, hey, in the middle of a reset after a crash. Took the opportunity to convert a room into a dedicated sump room with lab workbench. Nice. Extremely nice having sump, calcium reactor on work table. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, once you go there, you don't go back. It just I don't know that I could work under a tank anymore in a sump after having the luxury of the basement. Peter
Nope.
M is asking glass or acrylic, Alex. It's going to be glass.
Yep, glass.
Yeah.
So that is the reason the tank is not. I'm going to keep the water level around 32, 33 inches.
Yeah.
Um, if technically with glass, you could go up to, well, you can go up to 36 inches tall with standard 3/4 glass that's not tempered.
Hmm.
And if you want to go up to 48, you could use tempered glass, which I really am not that hot on doing.
No.
Um, and basically, there'll be a little, this is going to have a 2-inch seal top and bottom. So the glass is going to get ordered about 34 inches.
Yeah.
So at that height, it should give me about 32, 33 inches of water max, because the glass is also going to be raised off the bottom just a little bit too.
Hmm. Hmm. And I
So
think one of the things when we're looking at this, it looks like a shallow tank, but because of the scale of it, you don't realize that the gap from the bottom rail there to the brace that goes across to form the bottom of the canopy, you don't realize that's 2.5 feet, right? Like it just because of the huge scale of this thing.
yeah, the width of the tank being, it's 6 feet from beam to beam here. So
Yeah.
uh, it's funny because I remember Andrew Sadler doing a little talk with him on a live stream. He said, "Oh, so you're making a lagoon tank?" And I was like, I guess you could interpret it that way.
Probably.
I don't think most people would call this a lagoon tank. Um, Compared to his, yes, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, I think of mine as a lagoon style because it's only 21 inches deep and it's 5 by 5 feet. So the proportions are such that it doesn't like you don't see the vertical. You just see the,
yeah,
the real estate, right? Yeah.
yeah. So no, it's it's kind of crazy in that sense. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and see about finishing the epoxy. Hopefully, in the next week or so, I'm thinking 1 to 2 more coats of epoxy on the bottom, and the bottom should be done.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking it's going to be 1 to 2 coats on the outside beam. I used a little bit of my old epoxy here to get this section done already.
Yeah.
This is kind of a spill area. I just need to install a little like flap here almost. I don't
Yeah.
know, I might use some excess pond liner or something, just so that if there are spills or drips back here behind the tank,
Yeah.
there's a raised lip. So the idea is that if water gets over here, it's got a little channel and it's going to have to go either side. And I might do like a little water sensor or something back there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to
You know,
ask you this last time we were on here, we were talking about glass. What we're looking at here is going to be against the wall, right? Like there will be a gap,
Yep.
but not an appreciable gap. Are you
Well,
planning on putting anything on the glass that's that's at the wall part?
so
Like a tinting or anything like that, so you don't actually see the wall?
yeah, so I'm thinking I'm probably going to put a sheet of plastic um, over there, but then I was thinking about getting something like an aquarium background, like a blue
Oh yeah,
um, or
yeah,
black. And I'm not gonna stick it right to the glass. I'm just gonna put it back there so that, yeah,
yeah,
you don't see the wall color coming through.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I do, technically, because I know it's been something my dad just keeps going, I can't believe you're not putting a walkway back there. How are you gonna get back there? And I'm like, well, I technically have a gap here I could get my arm into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's like, well, what if something happens back there? And I'm like, well, it ain't going to matter if I can go back there or not, because it's going to be a glass seal problem. And
Yeah. What happens
honestly,
behind the tank stays behind the tank.
well, and the thing that I'll point out too, there's a chance that so everything as far as water flow pumps, things like that, I am going to all the light racks, I'm planning to put them on rollers, so I'll be able to pull them out
Yeah.
so that I could service them. Because really, the last foot or so of water back here,
Mm-hmm.
beyond a water pump, I'm not going to light this right back here on this last foot or so.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's everyone. I've had a few people who are like, "Oh, what are you going to take like 50 radions for this thing or 100 of them?" And I'm like, okay, there's going to be a lot of open swimming area, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to spend $800 or $900 on a light that's going to light the sand.
Yeah, and it like in a way, that's how I approached mine. I just have the two Atlantics in the middle, and then I've got the bars around the perimeter because I wanted zones of different intensities of light and different types of light. And you had talked about that because in your predator tank section of this, you
Hmm.
just need some light. You don't need light to
Yeah,
grow anything, right? So yeah,
yeah. I'm thinking I'm just going to do. Um, I bet I could do 2 strip light rows
yeah,
in here, and just do 12 feet times 2 of strip lights.
yeah,
In fact,
yeah,
I might start the tank off with 1 row of
yeah,
strip lights.
and see how it
And
looks. Yeah,
well, I'm thinking just once I get to the point, once I get this waterproofing done, the canopy is the next thing to get done.
hmm,
So I'm going to reinstall my 2-inch plumbing. Well, actually, first, I'm probably going to put all my panels in, my waterproofing panels up top here.
hmm,
So those are going to be FRP boards, and they'll get siliconed and screwed in here to seal the top of the tank from humidity.
yep.
So I'm going to probably leave this one out and this one out and this one out for the time being, because that's my source of light in the tank.
Yep.
Um, and then once I get electric in here and I get power into the tank, then I'll go ahead and I'll probably put those covers on and get, you know, maybe I'll just buy a couple strip lights, um, some little Home Depot ones or something to start doing some work, or maybe I'll just buy a regular fish one and I'll just use them where I need them. Because once I get uh, these canopy covers on, I have to do covers over here, so there'll be panels that go from here to here that'll seal up. So this will all get sealed. Um, I'll probably leave them open for the time being, but that's eventually what's going to happen here. Is this whole wall section is going to get sealed from here to here.
Yeah.
It probably won't get a final seal until the glass is installed, because I'll need to be able to get back there.
Yeah.
But I already drilled out all my holes here for my cross brace sleeves, and
Mhm.
then I pre-drilled the extra ones and just put the tip of the drill bit through them, because one thing I realized is, well, once it gets coated with epoxy, it's opaque, and I'm not going to be able to see where those are.
Right.
So by putting in a little pilot hole, I could put something over the top of it.
Yeah.
And that way, if there's a need for maintenance or fill test wise, I realize I need more cross bracing,
Yeah.
I can easily come in here and drill them out, and not be all bent out of shape about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
so
Well,
those
hey.
got, oh, go ahead.
No, no. You go ahead. You finish.
Uh, so yeah, that's why I pre-drilled all those out. So they're already set to go here.
Nice. I was just going to say hi to Lorena. Glad you made it. And Peter M has a comment. The maintenance is going to be challenging without swimming in it. Yeah, Alex, you talked about you at least have to do the token snorkel through the tank
Well, and it's
or
something,
scuba, I guess.
yeah. I mean, that's one thing I'm really like. A couple people are like, "What are you going to do about the back glass? How are you going to clean that?" And I'm like, "I'm not. I
Yeah.
don't care what happens back there. It gets covered in Coraline or something. Who cares?"
Well, and that's the thing about not lighting it too. I
Yes,
mean,
I could.
as long as you have a flashlight, so you can check and make sure nothing's unsavory is going on back there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And every now and then, am I going to have to take a swim here and see how things are going? Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the whole point of doing this the way that I am is to try and avoid that. I'm
Yeah.
going to make up some tools and stuff so that I can, you know, be able to get around things. I'm going to try and make the rock structures to where I can get to, get behind them all. I mean, I don't plan to have a ton of aquascape all the way up to the back.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to leave it fairly open so that I could shoot a high-speed jet of water down the backside of the tank here.
Yeah. 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 And speaking of rock, Andrew Hudson is asking how much rock it's going to take. And I don't know if you've ever figured out, like, people usually say, how many pounds of rock do you have in there? Well, my quantity would be 10 times what it was when I bought it because I soaked it for a year. So I don't know if that's how you figure it out, but you already have lots of rock, but you probably will need to get more, right?
Oh, yeah. So walk over to the rock storage area.
Look at those beautiful chairs with wood on them. Speaking
All
as a
right.
wife.
So I have all this branch. I've got two giant shelf pieces here. So I've got that. Then this giant pile of rocks, which goes all the way over here.
Oh my God.
So there's maybe about 1,000 pounds of rock I have. Oh,
I don't think that's enough. I think you need 5,000 pounds, Alex. Don't you need a
oh,
pound per gallon? Come on.
no. So I am likely gonna buy a couple pallets of rock.
Yeah.
So, well, and I'll see what I use, but I am not trying to make a rock wall here either.
No.
And especially with some of the negative space aquascaping stuff,
Yeah.
uh, I do plan to take a lot of the rock that I have, which I didn't do in my last build, and I'm going to smash it up. Maybe not to, really tiny size, but maybe I'm going to get stuff down to like softballs or baseballs.
Yeah.
And use that to start making an aquascape and cementing it together. And I think I'll gain a lot of, I'm going to gain a lot of mass in terms of size of structures with that,
Yep.
but it's still not going to be enough. So, there's a couple of things where I'm thinking like I got a couple nice pieces of Bucani. I might make those individual show pieces that can be like little islands on their own. Because that's one thing my favorite thing I do when I see snorkeling is when I'm snorkeling between patches of reef, in the middle of the sandy bottom, there's like one big rock or even a small rock, and the thing's just loaded up with corals and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing is, wouldn't it be cool to be able to recreate like a reef edge? You know how
Mhm.
there's like the surface and then it drops right off, and at the bottom you can have low light stuff. And oh man, I think that would be so cool. I really considered going with something like that in my tank, like sort of creating an L shape
Mhm.
and putting it down one side and across the back so that I could create that reef edge. But I mean, with only essentially 20 inches of water, it wasn't really practical.
Yeah.
And there'd be no way to get it properly lit, so it would be really dim at the bottom. So, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing where I'm still toying around with a lot of stuff. I haven't put a ton of thought into all my aquascaping plan, but I know this being the front for the big fish section, I'll probably do something fairly dramatic here.
Yeah.
Um, all the branching burnt rock that I have, I'm probably going to make a singular structure out of that.
Hmm.
Um, I just haven't determined where and how. I might do it in the SPS section, and then I have been toying around with making that underhanging shelf in here.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And one of the things that I plan to do with my aquascape, and because it was such a problem in my last tank that I hated gluing frags to rocks, um, especially like SPS, because they get knocked off all the time.
Yeah.
And really, what has to happen is I need to grow my frags out, get them onto a different type of plug. And I know, I believe it's Coral Euphoria
Yep.
does these custom long plugs and pre-drills all his rocks. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the aquascape in here, and then I'm going to get the hammer drill out. I'm going to pre-drill that thing for plugs everywhere.
Yeah.
So
So if you're going to do that, I'm just thinking about even using a Dremel on some of the rocks that we've done. There, it's really hard to control the the integrity of the hole through the rock. Like, does Abe have a special technique he uses to drill, or?
oh, I don't know, but just from experience using mason bits and hammer drills, um, you could usually get some reasonable accuracy with it.
Yeah, because
It just
I'm just
it all depends on where you're starting the hole and the angle to the rock face and everything. Because sometimes what you have to do is you have to kind of start the hole at one angle
yeah.
and then shift it to the angle you want to be on. Uh,
Yeah, because there's a lot of voids in most rock,
mhm.
and that's what we found. That's why I thought I could just take a hammer and a chisel and whack away at it. And then in my rockscaping video for the Red Sea tank, I got the chisel stuck so bad I couldn't get it out again. It was actually
Yeah,
really, really
I
funny.
don't know if I told you, but one of my past hobbies, but I used to have as a child with my dad, is we used to do rock collecting. So I've got a lot of experience uh, smashing rocks apart with hammers, um,
Nice. How do
and a
you
little bit with
tell? How do you tell?
drills.
How do you tell from the outside when you've got a really good agate or geode
Oh,
or
I
something like
never did
that?
a lot of agate hunting. I usually went into limestone quarries uh, and copper mines, and I also did a lot of fossil hunting too. I used to go
Right.
out to Arcona, Canada,
Yep.
so
Yep.
the river over there has got some really nice stuff. Uh,
Nice. That's cool. I'm fascinated by geology and rocks. Like there are things on Instagram where people show, in Devon especially, the Jurassic Coast in England, where they pick up these rocks and they tap them with a hammer and they open it up and it's like an amylite or whatever in the middle. Like just amazing.
yeah. Well, and I've found trilobites and
Yep.
brachiopods and pieces of crinoids. Um,
Nice.
And a lot of that stuff, it's just some of it's random chance. You kind of get an eye for the mineralogy that
Yep.
you're seeing things, and or a certain layer or hardness of a material, and that's where you start to, you know, find things. I mean, my trilobites, I almost smashed them with a sledgehammer by accident. Uh,
Wow.
I was splitting, shale on its side,
Mm-hmm.
and usually you hit it on the end grain to try and split it, and
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes you'd hit it in the center to split, just to cut the rocks up.
Yeah.
And I split a piece and I wasn't paying attention and I flipped it over to hit it. And about 3 inches from hitting it with a sledgehammer, I paused and went, "Holy crap, there's a trilobite on there."
Oh, wow.
And it was about 3 inch trilobite. It was missing a little piece of it, which I never found. But what's funny is everybody was looking at it. It wasn't until I was going home that I realized, hey, there's another half of another one sticking out of a piece of the rock next to it. And that one I did get fully complete when I chiseled it out. And then I had another one that I ended up, that was rolled up and smashed next to it. Matter of fact, hold on a sec. I'm going to divert us for one sec because this thing is on my shelf.
Cool. The Humble Reefer. Hey, welcome, Scotty. He says Gabe uses fiberglass rod like you can get at hardware stores for like driveway marking. Cool. And hey, Sean Clark, welcome. Lorena's asking if the artificial reef rock reacts differently to hammering or is it similar to natural rock? I can kind of answer that a little bit. The artificial reef rock is essentially cement, and I found the one time that I used it, it's very brittle. Look at that. That's cool.
Yeah, and see, there's a one that had rolled up and been crushed,
Yeah.
and another one right next to it.
Wow.
So
That is awesome.
and then this is one of my best pieces of conglomerate copper I pulled out.
What is conglomerate copper then?
So you'll see all these pebbles and rocks and stones.
Yeah.
So when the copper was in a liquid, it was flowing through all of this rock and it just solidified in the middle of it. So it's, like you could see like round pebbles and stuff, like river rocks.
Yeah.
Basically, it got upwelled through that. So they call it conglomerate copper. So it doesn't have crystals or anything, but you can see all the little pebbles in it.
Nice. And that's not going in your reef tank, just to be clear.
No, that would kill everything. As a matter of fact, that copper is actually very high in arsenic content too in the UP of Michigan, because the Native Americans used to use it for spears and some hunting tools, but they actually found out the hard way that making cooking instruments with it was lethal.
Yeah.
So
that was a cool little diversion there.
Yeah, I don't have much of my rock collection out, so yeah, the system's doing okay. Some of the corals are kind of some are happy, some are okay. I'm on like week 3 of the whole GFO to remove zinc thing, so we're gonna give it a little more time. The couple SPS I have, some of them are still looking kind of crappy, but I want to play this out, see what happens. If it lowers the levels, then I'm happy. If it just lowers them some and not a lot, we're gonna go through water change madness again.
Yeah, and have you identified any source for it? Like, I know you figured it was mostly the tiles, and you took those out for the most part.
I believe it still is, because the percentage of the zinc that went down when I removed, from the last test, but I'm literally down to the last things I could think of. And from here, it's not going to become pretty. I'll probably do some ICP testing to prove it out or disprove it. Literally, the only other thing in my system that's different are these pond liners. But I have a hard time believing that, because I had a pond liner tank with all my stuff in the temporary system, and it all did fine.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that's the case, but we'll see. Oh, I forgot. I haven't been cleaning my skimmer, so now it's this full. I think it's been sitting like 3-4 weeks now. I decided to just not do anything. It's my phosphate. I got GFO in there, and I don't want I don't mind extra phosphates. I've just said, yeah, let's just let it go and see what happens. So it's up to here. I'm gonna have to
That's
clean that when my wife's not home, or she'll kill me.
yeah,
Or
that's actual skimmate that you have, like the couple of inches in there.
yeah, so there's probably like a quart or more of it in there now.
Oh my God. Broke Reef Man 45. Hey, Paul, how's it going? He said the new tank build is looking great, Alex.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a bit messy down here, but we're getting there. I get the edge of this done and the epoxy on the bottom and this top beam done, and then I could withdraw the rest of the plastic. So yeah, I'm pretty confident this week. I might run a little short on epoxy again. We'll see. I'm got a little more than a gallon and a half left. And well, actually, I got some old containers I'm going to use for this. So there's a fair amount here that I can work with.
Right. And do you roll it on when you like, do you kind of pour a puddle and then roll it?
Yeah, preferably that's the way to go. I use, let me see if I got one over here. I know I do. There we go. I use these 1/4-inch nap epoxy rollers.
Oh, yeah.
I've been cutting them in half because I just use like a 4-inch wide roller. So it's a little bit wider than that, but no.
And here's me imagining you with like a broom handle style, big, wide, like, 2 foot wide roller.
I thought about that, and I
Oh
actually had
man.
the stick sitting over here, but I quickly ditched it because I was like, you know what? The challenge with this is that you only get about 20 minutes with a batch.
Yeah.
So the most I have ever mixed with this is about 48 ounces at once.
Yeah.
And what I do with that, and that's why you probably see a few spots here, like I poured a little heavy here, I poured a little heavy here, because what I started doing with this is I'd simply just pour out the cup, because the longer it's in a cup,
Mm-hmm.
it will start to react and cure faster in a larger quantity.
Yeah.
So usually want to put, it says put it in a paint pan, but I was like, well, what's the point of putting it in a paint pan? I'm just
Mm-hmm.
going to lose some of it in there because there's always a little residual that stays in the cup
Yeah.
or the mixing container. So I just started pouring it out. And then once I got to where I was happy that I had gotten most of it, I took the cup and I literally just put it upside down and just left it someplace so it could all start draining out.
Right.
But no, this went pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to go even faster now because I already got a coat of epoxy on here. So
Right.
the sanding on this will be pretty easy. I'll probably get that done in less than an hour. And then the other sanding shouldn't be too bad either. I think I'm just going to use the power sander for it. And you don't sand this long. It is a quick pass because all you're trying to do is scratch the surface of it,
Rough it up.
not remove material. If there's voids or anything, you let the epoxy fill it on the next pass, which is why, some of this here, I mean, you can see this is where the tallest layer was on here. So the epoxy got on it and it filled a lot of the voids, but it didn't have enough to encompass it.
Right.
So I'll go thicker on the next pass and that should get it. But, there's a few little, like I had some bubbles and stuff. There's a little high spot here. So I'll sand that lightly and it'll even out pretty good. But I'm thinking another 1 or 2 more coats and that ought to get this done. And then once the bottom's done, I can get the top aquarium brace beams, the 24 and the 30 footer. I'll get them onto a rack here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably put a couple sawhorses out and then those can get epoxied. So, but yeah.
Wow. And I thought, I mean, seeing what you go through here, what I went through pales in comparison. Just to get where you are now. I mean, I remember the initial thing we did was we decided how we wanted to lay out the sump and what we wanted to acquire to create the sump. And then we went and bought that stuff. And I distinctly remember bringing that home and thinking, yep, this is the official start of this whole thing. And then it probably took, well, it took most of the year to reach a point where the tank could go in. So, we started in late November of 2020 to create the sump. And then the tank didn't come into the house until late November of 2021. So I know how that feels, but I look at this and I just, the mind boggles. I can't even imagine um, everything you have to think of and go through to even get where you are now. It's just amazing.
Well, thanks. No, it's a fun journey. I mean, never all goes perfect either. There's been mistakes made, and I've had to redo things and
Yep.
learn some lessons. But overall,
Hmm.
it's the vision is coming true. It's just
Hmm.
it's the one thing I would tell anyone think about it is this isn't going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so I was thinking this year I'm going to get water in this thing, and I might still, but I think that dream's slipping slightly. Um, just because I thought the waterproofing was going to take about a month less than it has.
Right.
Um, but
Yep.
there's been some life stuff that's gotten in the way, and
Yep.
um, sometimes I've had a few days where I go, you know what, I do not want to do this today, or I have hit my limit,
Yep.
and I very well learned that when you hit your limit, you need to stop for the day.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're going to start trying to take shortcuts or make mistakes, and then you look at it a day or two later and go, why the heck did you even bother with that? You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Now you got to redo it all.
Yeah, I totally relate to that, and obviously on a much smaller scale. But I know exactly how that feels. It's because you put a timeline in your mind and you try to match that timeline, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I don't know, I'm not getting any younger, and energy level plays a huge part in anything I do with this tank. I think, oh yeah, I got 6 or 8 corals to plant in the rocks. Well, I'm lucky if I get 3 done, because you figure out where you're going to put them, and then you go through all the steps, and then it doesn't work and it falls on the sand, so you got to start over. And nothing much ever goes to plan. So you got to know when to stop for sure.
Yep. Yeah. So, no, but hey, I mean, this first layer of pond armor turned out really good. And, you know,
Yep.
like you said, the sanding and stuff's pretty easy. I mean, I'll sand it, I'll vacuum it, and I'll wipe it down with isopropyl alcohol, and then round two we can begin.
So then
So,
when you've done your coats of the epoxy and they're done to your satisfaction, that's the bottom of your tank, right? That's where the
yep,
sand goes on.
yep, sand,
Yep.
rocks. Um, I might have something I'm doing in here that I haven't talked about yet, but
Hmm. Yep.
until I actually get to that point, I'm not gonna say what it is, but
Mm. Yep.
I've got ideas for bottom stuff because while this epoxy is very strong and I've trusted it, never had a problem with it, I do like to keep it protected as well.
Hmm.
Uh, so because it is what's holding back the water, and
Oh
I don't
yeah.
I don't plan to keep anybody that's going to probably be let's shoot through this for fun to see what's down below. Uh, but that's not to say that somebody can't get that idea. I mean, triggerfish and puffers and stuff
Uh-huh.
get those ideas sometimes. So we'll see. I've got some thoughts and ideas on how I want to do a couple things, and a lot of it kind of depends on uh, how all this works, and then doing some experimentation when I get a little further. And you know, I'm I'm always excited to try new things. So
Hmm. Yeah.
because the aquascaping it's gonna take some time. There's no two ways about it. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna start, once I get to the point where I have glass installed and panels done, then I'm gonna start going, okay, uh, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
Uh, how do I, I'll put some chairs over here and over here or back in my office, and I'll start going, okay, how do I want this to look?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because I've got things I want to do, but it's not, it's not going to be until I actually get the rocks and I could start toying with them or saying, well, let's start gluing them together.
Mhm.
I think one thing I know I'm going to do different this time based on my experience with my last tank is my Zoas are not going to just get all tossed onto a big rock.
Yeah.
While it looks beautiful,
Uh-huh.
9 times out of 10, I found one of the species of Zoas or Pallies is going to outcompete everything else.
That's
And
right.
it's just going to run the other ones over,
Mhm.
and you're going to be like, oh yeah, I forgot about those. Because there's like one polyp left underneath 2 or 3 rows of the others.
Yeah.
So I've got plans to do stuff differently with them where I can still keep them close, but not to where they're all touching on the same rock. So I've got ideas I'm toying with that type of stuff too.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I think the mindset changes. And even with my tank, I have to keep reminding myself I have space. I don't have to plant everything 2, 3 inches apart. I can plant the stuff 6, 8, 10 inches apart. And because I want it to be long term, it'll fill in as long as it stays healthy. Like as long as I can manage to maintain everything so that it's healthy and growing, ultimately in 2, 3 years time, I won't be going, oh my god, now I got to trim all this back and this is killing that. And I mean, even my maze brain garden I mentioned in my video this week, those things have super long tentacles, and they're finally adjusting to their new home and reaching out to see who's next door. And I can't believe they can reach across 3 or 4 inches of space in high flow at the front corner and start stinging their neighbors. So I have to rethink the positioning of that. So the bigger tank is a different mindset. And I can
yeah,
totally see in a small tank, like a nano tank, that's where those beautiful little jewel-like Zoa gardens really, really shine. But in a big tank, you don't get the same sense of what they are in relation to their environment. I'm not explaining this very well, but it's a bigger scale. So
yeah.
you almost have to spread things out to get a similar effect, and it'll take longer to get there. I guess that's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, and then that's the thing too is that you could start to think about having larger colonies of stuff and not
Hmm.
trying to compact it. And yeah, just give it
Yep.
more time to fill in, or you
Yep.
know, some of my strategies I'm going to try and do with some of this stuff too. I mean, because that's the other thing, my system that's running now has just been kind of going. I'm not at all happy with how it's running right now,
Mm.
just because of the zinc problem and stuff. And I've been trying to do this take care of it in a baby step way.
Sure. Yeah.
And, but once I get done with this part of the build, um, the electrical is going to take a little time, but not a crazy amount.
Mm.
Plumbing is going to be pretty easy because I already have the plumbing done.
Yeah.
I just had to add more hangers and glue it together. And then light racks, those are not going to be a crazy hard thing to do because I'm probably just going to end up using like an 80/20 of some kind with it.
Yeah.
I just got to figure out the magic way of doing it. I think they're going to be like 5-foot light racks. So then I just got to figure out, can I put like some drawer extenders on them or something where I could pull them out most of the way? So I got to work out some things like that. But
There's something that we considered with our lights were industrial mesh curtain tracking. And you
mm,
know how in factories that that have large machinery going, they've got those metal curtains that pull across.
yeah,
The tracking for that is something you can buy. It's ridiculously expensive. I think it would have been something like almost $500 just to do my just to get
'Cause
enough footage for my tank.
that doesn't sound like an economical option for me.
No, and well, and the other thing, and another reason we kind of discarded the idea because it would have been ideal, but it's metal, like it's steel. So I don't know that you can get them out of aluminum. So you're looking at corrosion issues, but even something like that, like maybe there is some sort of an industrial application for screening that
Well,
might that might
yeah,
hold the weight is what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm sure I'll find something. I mean, there's big drawer pulls and stuff like that that can take heavy loads. So
Yeah.
really, for me, it's just finding the right one and
Mhm.
then finding, how am I going to do it? Because some of these light racks are going to probably be. I'm thinking they're all going to be about 5 to 6 foot light racks.
Yeah.
Um, I could make them longer, but I think that's going to just make it more difficult on things like those poles or,
Yeah.
and I don't mind having some of that stuff, whatever it is, it's got to have rollers. It's got to be um, not made out of something that's going to rust like easily.
Hmm.
Or, I'll have to see what I could find. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff out there. I just got to go find it. But in
Yeah.
part, this is the way I build things. I wait until I get to that point to solve that problem.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
it's once I figure out what I'm doing, I'm going to be like, oh, this isn't going to be hard at all. Because the light racks, it'll take some time to assemble them and cut everything to length the way I want it. But once I get the first set done, the rest of them are going to be easy. Because
Well,
if
and
I look, yeah,
plus there are lots of coral farms who encounter exactly this kind of problem, how to mount lights across wide tanks. And I don't know, maybe somebody out there has already come up with a system that works really well.
yeah, most of them keep them fixed because they don't have to move them.
True enough. Yep.
Because
Yep.
they'll have access on all sides. But for me, I'm probably gonna. I want to be able to open a door or open the canopy top and be able to slide the rack out so that I could service everything on there without having to get in the tank. That's the goal.
Yeah,
Because this
exactly.
could also extend. Let me get up for a sec. This can also extend to flow pumps because ideally, some of the water flow pumps that I have uh, that are going to be in the back or even in some of them in the middle here, I don't want them on the glass
Yeah.
where I could see them.
Yep.
I'm going to mount them in rock structures at the center, and they might get mounted to the canopy,
Hmm.
especially if I get some real high velocity ones, because I don't want that pressure on the glass.
Yeah.
I want it onto something that I can control a little better. And hey, maybe some of them are fixed, and the only way to deal with them are to go in the tank. But I might also try to put those into a locking slide
Hmm.
where I can mount them up and not have to go in to service them.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, hey, Reefing with O. Glad you could come by. O says Alex is going to plant 3 feet apart. Yeah. Well, it's that thinking that is alien when you've, like, for me, all I ever had was small tanks. Then I got the Red Sea tank, which I thought, oh, this is going to be my forever tank. We all know what happened there, but it's a totally different mindset when you've got the space to play with.
well, and part of what I'm thinking too is, as I just ideally, like I said, I'm going to grow everything out in my frag tank first,
Yep.
replug it, and then, if I get it to the point where I get something where I go, well, I got 5, 6 frags of this, I'm going to find, I might take an area and say, all right, I'm going to put 5 or 6 in the same spot to grow out a big colony.
Yep.
Or I might say, well, let's just scatter them around in different light and flow patterns and see which one does well.
Yep. Yep.
And, one of them might do great. A couple of them might die.
Yep.
But that's one of those things I'm trying to think about this in a little different terms, not just oh, well, I got 1 inch frag, because I'm not going to do that. That's going to have to grow out first, because
Yeah.
if something pops off a frag plug here,
You'll never
if
find it.
it don't fall where I could see it, I'm not ripping the tank apart to go find it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly. And I was thinking about flow too, because when you start creating your aquascape, that was kind of part of what I didn't plan very well, because what I planned for mine isn't exactly what I'm doing. And I'm still finding I'm not getting enough flow at the front of the tank at the top, in the top of the water. And it creates like a film on the water. By the end of the day, there's like
Mm.
an oily film, and I just don't like it. So I'm still trying to work on that. But the problem, of course, is even if I wanted to put power heads on the back aimed up, the rocks are back there, and that's where the highest part of my aquascape is. So that part I didn't plan very well. So I'm still experimenting with a couple power heads high up on the sides, aimed front, and that seems to be helping a little bit. But I mean, not that I want a whole bunch of power heads on the side either, because that's right at my eye level.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it becomes a really interesting challenge so that A, you don't have dead spots like I have at the front center of the glass. And B, you don't have things set up so that a lot of it has too much flow to handle what you want to keep there, right? So it's a challenge.
Well, right now, my flow plan to start off, the first return and the second return are both going to drop here.
Yep.
So that's going to force all the water in the tank is going to be returned on this side furthest away. So the water is going to have to come through here and then flow down that way. And on the very far end of the tank where the vent fans are back there will be where the overflow is against the window side.
Right.
So the general flow is that everything comes in here, it's going to flow down that way.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as inside this tank for the big fish, I want at least one very large pump pushing water around this tank and a counterflow.
Yep.
Then I'll have the double divider. And then what I am thinking right now is somewhere, likely from here to here, I am going to put in something very large. And I'm not going to have, like I said, I'm not going to make a wall of rocks back here,
Mm-hmm.
but I want the current ripping back here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can flow 18, 20 feet so that it puts real high flow along the back, because this is going to be SPS.
Mm-hmm.
So if I get a nice big jet of water coming here, then over here, I might have some stuff up by the divider because I'll be able to conceal it a little bit with this beam here.
Yeah.
And then you're going to still have the natural water flow of the tank coming down, which is going to get accelerated this way because of the water being pushed by this big jet.
Yeah.
So it's going to make a big, giant sweep over here. And that's where on the back, I'm likely going to put in more propeller-driven pumps, or in the middle, hanging gyre-style pumps.
Yeah.
Where it'll be ultra-high flow here. And then wherever I end the SPS section, the further you go down this way, the lower the flow will be.
As it approaches the overflow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So more than likely, that's why I'm not sure where I'm going to stick a real big pump here, because I don't want to be, I want this to be the pullback into that pump so that it's not beating everything here, because this is where I want to keep a lot of the big bubble corals, ones that don't like to get the crap beat out of them. I want them over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's where, if I do one big flow pump this way, that can help generate a lot of flow for the best amount of wattage. And then I'll use auxiliary pumps over here to kick the water out forward in a random motion to keep things going there.
Yeah.
So, and I might have some that I drop down in the middle and make some rock structures so that I could do more gyres or things like that. So it's really churning this thing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
So,
going to be interesting. It's always a surprise. There's always that one little. I moved one rock and changed it from horizontal to vertical, and it allowed me to put my cinerinas at the front because they were getting the same flow as they were at the back. So I thought, well, what the heck? I'm going to put them at the front where I can actually see them.
Well,
So
and
it's interesting.
and that's the thing too. So this section of the tank, except for an area in the middle, is likely going to be bare bottom.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put sand in the middle. So if I have wrasses that like to bury themselves or puffers or triggers that like blowing the sand, they got an area for it.
Yeah.
This side of the tank is likely going to be bare bottom due to the flow.
Uh-huh.
So I am going to use my sand because I've already got 400 or 500 pounds of sand.
Which you haven't opened yet, right?
Nope, they're still fermenting.
I can hardly
Tell me
wait
when
for
you're going to visit Chicago. I'll have some
Yeah.
fun set up for us.
Okay.
You can see that's what I'll tell people. I'll be like, if you want to see the aquarium, you have to promise that you'll do one piece of maintenance for me. And I could leave the skimmer for them, or I could have a bucket of that. Say, you want to clean some sand for me?
What? You expected free admission? Come on.
And I have the right to film it and broadcast.
Yeah.
So, but this whole area here is likely going to have sand on it, at least where it's not an ultra crazy flow. But that's the thing, is I'll probably let it kind of figure out itself where it wants to be.
Yeah.
I did that a bit in my last tank. It settled out, but I also realized that to do the ultra high flow that I really want for like a solid SPS section, it's just not feasible to say, let's put the sand there. So,
No, that makes total sense.
but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm thinking with flow, is one giant pump pushing this way, and then supplemental pumps around, and then probably another bigger pump in here pushing water for the big fish section, just to keep that churning for them so that they don't get lazy. Got to keep your fish exercised.
Oh yeah, I love seeing the little coral beauty angel struggle in the current in some spots in the tank. Because you know what? It's good for them.
Well, I just compared, for anybody that has not done snorkeling or scuba diving or anything with fish, and I've done a lot of up close to shore snorkeling where you're getting thrown 8-10 feet in a few seconds from wave action, and you see those tangs just sitting there like they're moving a little but not all that much. Trust me, they can handle it.
Oh yeah.
So there's a flow scheme that I'm starting to build here. And then, part of it's going to depend on what I can DIY too, because there's going to probably be some DIY flow pumps that I do to try them out. So instead of just buying giant commercial stuff off the bat.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of the problem too is with the giant commercial stuff, unless you can get stuff that's actually designed for a public aquarium, I would always worry about how reef safe it is. I mean, you have a large volume of water, but look what happened with the zinc. Like, you just don't know.
Yeah, well, and I'll chalk that up in part 2 to experimenting, because I've seen some people do things with stuff like ROV thrusters and stuff, and those I kind of go, I don't know if that's a great idea. Somebody was doing it on Reef to Reef, and I was like, they threw a ton of water and stuff, and they weren't expensive, but then I'm kind of going, those motors aren't meant to be run 24/7, 365. Just my thought is, when that type of stuff is more of a disposable item.
Yeah.
Yeah,
plus you don't, I mean, you also have to consider the intakes and how you handle those, and look at, now everybody's having to put NEM guards on their power heads, stuff like that. Little tiny fish, or even, you don't know what might get thrown up and caught in the intake in a pump, and who needs that?
Yeah. So no, things are, that's part of the plan here, though, at least. So And like you said, the overflow box is going to be over here. I'm not sure how big I'm going to go with it yet. I'm going to say it's probably going to be at least a good 3-4 feet.
Yeah.
So, and then depends on the size of bulkhead hole I can get drilled in the glass is going to be what drives the plumbing scheme back there.
Is it going to be external overflow?
Uh, Probably not. I'm probably just going to put a custom inside box,
Yeah.
and then it'll be just the plumbing coming out.
Right.
So I'll probably just put some air siphons on them so that I can just control them like my normal T-stand pipes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one thing I really love about this tank, the design of it, is that the overflow is all glass and I can keep an eye on how dirty it gets. And when I need to, I just turn on the power heads that I've got in there. I've got them switched on one of the power bars and I just turn them on for a couple hours and stir everything up. And I really like it. It's got algae and coralline and whatever it can get from the light. It's got the little white spirorbid worms and everything, but I do not have half an inch of sludge sitting on the bottom, like I always ended up with other tanks with overflows that you can't see it. You don't know it's there until you go sucking it out with a siphon, and it's disgusting, and could explain why you're having nutrient issues. So. That's one thing I really do like about this design. It just flushes, goes right down the pipes, and gets caught in the filter boxes in the trash can. So
yeah, so once it gets out of the overflow here, the main drain pipe will snake around the wall and it'll go through that wall.
Right. Wow.
So yeah, there'll be a 4-inch drain line, a 4-inch ventilation line, and 2-inch return lines coming through that wall.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I'll make a little box or something that can all be enclosed in. So I should still be able to view this side of the tank. I'm going to try and do my best to tuck the plumbing so that it doesn't close off the whole back side of the tank here.
Yeah.
So, but I'll figure that out, what's going to work best, because I still want to have access to my window and everything. Like I said, it all depends on how big of a bulkhead hole I can get drilled in the glass.
Yeah.
So if they can do 3-inch, I would be ecstatic, because I'd say give me 2 3-inch bulkheads, please.
And you don't have any more of those big giant 99-cent jokey bulkheads, do you? They're 4-inch ones. So,
I only own 2 of those. I do have a 4-inch Union I have not used yet. I'll probably have to buy one more of those. But yeah, so this tank, though, I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I got a spare 120 HDPE tank, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to take that and plumb it into the drain of this and the return line. And then I'll have, for the testing of the tank, I'm going to use a 120 sump. We'll see how that actually works.
Yeah, no kidding.
Probably going to have an emergency drain on it so that, if I shut the power off, I don't think that's going to have enough for the drain off. But
no. Well, I know my tank is 15 gallons an inch of surface area, so yeah,
it's a little more than that with this one.
I can imagine.
So the main sumps could take it. I'm pretty sure, because they're not filled up all the way, so I could lose 1 inch or 2 of water in here and probably be fine in there. But that 120 sump, we'll just have to test it out. I could always run the water very low in it too.
Oh yeah.
And see how that works. And then if I had to, I could always make a bigger sump or something to fluff it off, or I'll figure it out. But
yeah, because really it's only the sort of the mechanics and the physics of the drain and return that you want to try and figure out before you hook it up to everything else.
Yep. So that way too. Once I get that rolling, I can test with it. But like I said, once I get this waterproofing done, I get the interior of the canopy done, the glass ordered, and I get the exterior work going, which, I'll be honest, the furniture panels for most of this, I've kind of thought, I think I have a design now outside of cutting the boards and making the panels. Those aren't going to be overly complicated. So once that gets done, then, at that point, I'll be pretty much complete with that part of the build.
Yeah.
The bottom panels won't be hard. It's just going to be the canopy panels, which I'm kind of thinking I'm going to do 6-foot panels.
Mm-hmm.
And that way I can, I'll have a light rack that's, 5 to 6 feet long. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 light racks. So then I'll have canopy doors that open. So it'll be 1 on the end, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So.
Well, and the nice thing about that is that that's the kind of stuff you can sort of finish as you're doing other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
like,
I could have, I could have the tank and I could have the glass installed and be, the only thing I need to have done before fill test is the canopy needs to be done.
Yeah. Because you can't get in there. Yeah.
Well, the door, the panels on it have to be complete because you cannot have this amount of water without humidity control from the very start. So, that is required. I mean, technically I could use plastic, but I'd really be, I think there would be something else very wrong going on if I am at that point. Like I can't get lumber or something.
Yeah. What is the situation with that? I mean, you probably haven't bought actual lumber for a while. I haven't heard any issues lately.
It seems to be a bit wishy-washy over here. So plywood was still pretty expensive, which no surprise, but I'm gonna wait until I'm ready for it. I'm not trying to get concerned about it. So once I'm ready, I'll go ahead and get that going. And then once I get these panels rolling, they should be pretty simple. I gotta make panels. I gotta make covers for the posts, covers for this, covers for the outside. But compared to everything else I've been doing, that's not going to be that difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at least it's not going to be smelly and require you to wear a hazmat suit.
Well, I do have to do staining, but I'm going to probably try to regulate that to the garage. Like I said, or if I don't get, I got to figure out if I'm going to pond armor the inside of it or use FRP boards, or I'll have to think about what's most economical, because I'm going to use FRP boards for up here and FRP boards here.
Mm-hmm.
And then anything I can't fill in, I'll figure out something with a spacer, or, some of these screw holes and stuff. I gotta just silicone those.
Yeah.
But this will all get sealed up. Then the plumbing, you can see my holes for the plumbing, so the plumbing could go back in. I'll get that glued in once the light racks and stuff are done. So yeah, no, there's a lot to do, but it's, a lot of it's a little bit more, I think there'll be a lot more progress quicker with it.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what I meant. Like what you're doing now requires steps that require time between steps, so that when you go on to the next step, your foundation is ready to go. And once you get all this waterproofing done and you can get your glass ordered, then you're kind of where you can have multiple project streams going if you want to, because the basics that you got right here that you can't move forward without, they're good to go. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So the waterproofing gets done. We'll do the glass measurements, so I can start getting quotes. And then the other thing I'll do too is I'm going to make a mock-up piece of the glass and make sure that I can fit it inside my window.
Yep.
If I can't, well, that's a little bit of a problem. The window's wide enough, so there's not a width problem
Yep.
at the window. You can't see the inside of the outside of the window well is what is more than likely going to be a problem. And I'm guessing I'm going to have to get the Sawzall out and cut some steel away,
Yeah.
and do a little bit of digging, but it's minor stuff.
Think like an Egyptian. Make yourself a ramp.
Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to make a ramp and I'm going to make a sled.
Yep.
So got a piece of glass that's 12 feet long that's got to go through there. So the whole idea is that I bring it in on a ramp. That is, the glass will be on a sled that goes down the ramp, so that once the piece of glass is in here, we can tilt it up, go ahead and mount it.
Yep.
So we'll start, all the glass comes in, it's going to get moved to the back. So right now, there should be 9 large pieces of glass. So we'll have 2 6-footers, a 12-footer, a 12-footer, 12-footer, a 12-footer, and then these will be like 9 or 10-footers this side, and then this will be another 6-footer. So
wow.
So yeah, I'll have to make a whole little holding area here so that I can stage the glass up. And then the glass will have to sit in the house for at least a couple of days.
Yeah.
To get temperature acclimated. And then once we're temperature acclimated, then I'll go ahead and I'll install all my spacers and everything else, and then we'll start installation, which I'm going to say is going to take a whole day to get done. And that's just going to be for the initial glass. Then I'll probably come back after a couple of days of letting it cure up. And the corners, all the butt joint seams, like they'll be here, all the corner seams, those are all going to get a double plate of glass on them. So they'll all be armored seams effectively.
Yeah.
So, and then it's probably going to sit for at least 2 weeks to a month to cure.
Yep.
And then once we're cured, I have to have the canopy done, all the interiors of the canopy done, and then we're going to do a fill test. Yeah. So
that's so exciting that you can actually talk about the planning leading right up to that. Because, I mean, when you think back to when you started all this, that was sort of just an amorphous plan in the future sometime. And now it's like you've laid out all the steps that lead to that. I like to me, that's like major.
Yeah. So once we get to the fill test portion of this, it's probably going to take, it's probably going to be at least a week or 2 to fill the tank.
Yeah.
Not because I'm just going to use tap water to start, and I'm going to fill it a quarter way. We're going to let it sit a few days. Make sure nothing's happening. There's no problems. And if we're good to go, then we'll fill it up to the halfway mark and we'll give it a few days.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to the 3/4 mark, give it a few days. And then when we go to the top, depending on where the water level is that I ideally want it to sit, and the idea, like how much room I have, I might slightly overfill the tank as a pressure test.
Yeah.
And like maybe I'll give it an extra inch of water or half inch of water, and then it will sit at that. And I'll use, at that point, I should have my temporary sump hooked up, and I could start the flow of water temporarily to the tank.
In and out, yep. Do you have, one of the challenges I had was because I used tank water to fill the display from the sump. We just pumped it upstairs and we went 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, because we didn't want to take too much out of the main system that was already running. Like, we certainly didn't want to take half the water out at a time because we had to replace it. But One of the challenges when I did the first fill was because we didn't plan ahead properly with replacement salt water, and I could only put a few inches of water in. But because it came from the existing system, there's organics in it, right? So I had
Mhm.
to heat it and circulate it, and that was a challenge with not much water in the tank. I mean, we did it. It probably wasn't ideal, but I'm wondering whether, like, will you have flow in here with tap water? Because I'm sure there's going to be some element of you're going to want gas exchange so it doesn't
I'm
stagnate.
hoping, yeah. So I'm hoping at that point I can just go ahead. I'll put some flow pumps in. Um, it might just be some stuff I have on hand, or it might be some of the DIY stuff I start tossing around.
Yeah.
And at that point, yeah. So if I get it running with the sump, I'll have the abyss on it. So uh, that way I can retest my return plumbing in the drain to a certain point.
Yeah.
So that will be one of the things that I really want to just fundamentally test.
Yeah.
And if I don't have that for whatever reason, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll add something in here I could always take my abyss and literally just turn it on a 90 and just have the thing blasting water down one whole end of the tank and it'll circulate it. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. That's the easiest. I've done
yeah.
that too with return pumps, turn them
And,
on their side because of the
and
power, right?
and I have a spare heating loop. Um, so I theoretically could, well, I shouldn't say theoretically, I can put in another PEX heating coil
Hmm.
and install it into um, my temporary sump for this system, which would be ideal
Yeah.
because then I can heat it. Um, and see, now we were talking about it too, about how to deal with an overflow situation. I was like, oh, yeah, I've already got a bulkhead with a 2-inch outlet in it. So I guess I could just plumb a standpipe. So if I cut power, it'll automatically drain the tank to a floor drain.
Hmm.
So, so see, I already figured out how I'm going to avoid that. So, but
There you go.
I could stick a heating coil in there, and that way, um, that would be satisfied from that stance.
Yeah.
The way I could heat this up, because even once I get my tap water fill test done, and I'm satisfied that it was good, I've got to drain the tank. I got to clean the tank. Then I got to aquascape the tank.
Yep.
Make sure I'm happy with my aquascaping, which is probably going to take a little while.
Yep.
And then I got to refill the tank with RODI water and then add salt, then mix it up and heat it up. And then I'm going to guess it's probably going to be somewhere between 4 and 6 months before I could tie this aquarium to the running system.
Yeah.
Because I'm more than likely going to throw some, get some live sand. I'm going to probably put some rocks in from the other system to start seeding this one. I'm going to
Yeah.
start slowly doing a few things to get life in here at bacteria. And, at that point, I'll have some basic lighting over the whole tank, probably nothing with coral. So it's going to be a process.
Oh
And
yeah.
even once the tank's running and I finally get to the point where I go, all right, let's throw the valve. I'll, get it all running as one system. Once it's running for a while, I'll take my fish in the 150 and I'll move them in here. I might take some fish out of the reef tank and put them in here. So, it's a time thing.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's allowing enough time.
yeah,
And that's, man, it was really hard to wait in my case until I felt the display was ready to take the other water. And it's because they're two different systems, you can't just assume that you can flip the switch and combine the water and it's all going to be good. And my fear was that I was going to kill everything that had been living in the sump quite happily, because of something that was going on in the display that I wasn't aware of. And so that's why it took me probably 6 weeks to actually decide, okay, this is, we're going to do it now. and based on ICP tests and stuff like that. And that's all I could really think of to check. Keep an eye on the parameters, do the ICP, make sure there wasn't anything wildly out of whack, and then just cross your fingers and do it.
Yeah, and I mean that's that'll be the big thing, and then I'm gonna see maybe as I do water changes, or other things, I'll use some of that water to go in here. Obviously, I have to have my zinc issue resolved,
Yeah.
or I'm not gonna do that. But like I said, I'm getting further along with this, and then once I get this done, it's gonna be all right. We got to get the other system back to 100% on track. I mean, the fish are good. Some of the corals are good. We got to resolve our water problems once and for all, and then go from there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I will say, if anybody said, well, for example, this tank, the display is barely 5 months old, and someone commented, I think it might have been Phil, said like Insta tank that's really healthy, and it is like an Insta tank. And the only thing I think that has helped, or the thing that I think has helped the most rather, is the water volume. Because of having 600 gallons of water, I don't worry as much as I used to about having small nutrient issues, because I don't have enough livestock that I'm going to pollute 600 gallons of water. And in fact, the reverse is true. I'm dosing phosphate and nitrate to maintain those levels until I get more fish. So it's the water volume. So I would say to anybody who ever can, if you can plumb more water volume into your system, I don't think it's ever a mistake, because it gives you a little bit of a cushion. First, if something goes wrong, it's not going to be as critical as in the smaller volumes. I would say, like, we used to joke all the time when I had the 1.6 gallon Pico tank that, it was on a cabinet. And I used to say to my husband, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to give this thing like a 40-gallon sump. So your display is this little weensy thing, but you got 40 gallons of water supporting it, right? Anyway.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot, but we'll get there.
Well, you got here.
Yep. Nope. It's definitely a little further along than it was last year, when I don't think I had the stand done at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't specifically remember. I do remember when you were joining all of the tanks in the fish room together. And well, but wait a minute. That was back in 20. You moved in December of 2020 into that house.
Yep. So May of 2021, I had the fish room going.
Yeah.
So the fish room's been going about a year, and a year and a half ish, I guess. So that's been running. I really haven't done a lot in there. So that's just been maintaining, and then it's just been building this.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get we're definitely over the 50% mark here. So I'm getting a little more excited every day seeing it at this stage, because the canopy is waterproof, the bottom's starting to be waterproofed. Some of the top aquarium brace beams are waterproofed. I'll have this probably waterproof tonight, and another layer on this tonight, if all goes well. If it's not tonight, it'll be tomorrow. Just depends how I feel after doing all my sanding. So, but yeah, I know it's coming along quick. And then once I get this epoxy stuff done, a lot of it's just going to be cutting all the panels for the top, and it's going to be a lot of little jobs, but they're all going to once the plumbing gets back in here, that's going to change it, and then the light racks, and then once I get furniture finishing on the outside, and then I think once the glass is in, that's when it's going to start getting really real.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because that's the one thing, the glass right now, it's like, well, I could very clearly see it with the top aquarium brace where it's going to be, but once the canopy panels go on, um, then it's going to really start to take shape and get that final look. And then once I get far enough along, I could clean all this junk up and move it out of here. Then I'm going to really see just how much space I still have down here, because the basement is a mess right now. There is no way around that. It is an absolute mess. So
yeah, it's hard to avoid. And when we first set up the fish room in the basement, I had storage cabinets forming kind of a wall divider, defining the space. And I remember my husband was doing something and he said, like, why don't we move these cabinets? And so we moved them into the space that's supposed to be the rough-in for the bathroom down there, because it's not finished. Man, what a difference that made to have that out of there. And I'm the type of person, I can't think if I'm working in clutter. So it doesn't
don't
mean
come over here.
no, but it doesn't mean clutter doesn't happen, because it does. But I get to a certain point where I just can't take it anymore, and I just go crazy and clean it all up.
Can you not take it anymore, Cindy? Come on.
Well, I'd probably be afraid of tripping over stuff if I had to walk through there.
Oh, see, I treat this similar to how I did my bedroom when I was a child. I know where I can and can't step. No one else does, but I know. Just like I know where the tools are on this workbench.
Yeah.
I know where stuff is in there, kind of.
Well, and this is a temporary workspace. I mean, if this was your workshop, you would have it organized. And it really annoys me if I go to my magnet rack and I go to grab the long tweezers and they're not there. It's like, okay, so the first thing I do is go, where did my husband leave them? But it's usually not him, it's me who's left them somewhere.
And fun fact for you, in the last week, I've thrown out 3 trash bags this big of stuff from fiberglass and some other stuff just cleaning up down here. So
yeah,
I think I've got another half dozen of them. It's like some of the stuff like the scrap wood. Yeah, I could throw it all out, but I know what's going to happen as I'm building some of this and go, oh, I need a piece of scrap wood for a jig or something like that. I go, well, I threw it all out. Now I got to go buy a piece.
Exactly. Well, my husband just finished building shelves in the garage to organize everything. So finally, after 2 years in this house almost, we don't have to excavate to find stuff in the garage anymore. It's all organized.
Yeah.
And then he built a workbench, and at our daughter's place, they have a barn, and my son-in-law's uncle dropped off a bunch of extra lumber that he wasn't going to use. And he said, oh, if you can use it for something, go ahead. But the whole family uses this barn for storage. So my husband asked Dan, the son-in-law, can I have some of these 2x4s? Because I'm going to be building in the garage, blah, blah, blah. So he said, yeah, whatever you can use, go ahead. So he figured it out. And by the time he was done getting that wood, plus the wood from the crate that the tank was delivered in, plus a bunch of other scrap wood from other things he's done, it only cost him about maybe $100 to do his bench, because he had all of that other wood. It would have cost him over 500. So scrap wood, like even if it's short lengths of stuff, like you can always find a use for it.
Yeah, and then once I get to the point where I'm wrapping up the project and I don't need it, I'll keep a little small quantity of it in one box and the rest will go.
Yeah.
And if it's regular, if it's not plywood or treated wood or something, then I can always see if I have a fire pit or my neighbors, if I have a fire pit by then or my neighbors got fire pits, I might say, hey, you want some kindling to get your fire pit going?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, you don't have to waste it. I hate wasting stuff. And I don't know that I'm a hoarder. I'm more of, because I don't have garbage wall to wall that I can't, function with.
I will say that growing up with my grandfather used to keep every little thing, and my dad had markedly less, and then I have had even less, and I think it all came from when I moved out of my parents' house. Everyone was, and I had my own apartment first. It was, oh, you want this old furniture? Oh, yeah, I'll take it. And then my parents moved. My dad cleaned out the garage. He's like, "Oh, you want all this stuff?" And I'm like, "Good stuff. I don't need it." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll take it." And now I go, "Why the heck did I take any of that junk?" Um, our last house, or our first house in Illinois we bought, they wanted to leave all this furniture behind for us. They're like, "Oh, you guys can just have it." And we're like, "No, get rid of it."
Yeah, exactly.
Kids playground in the backyard? Nope, we don't have kids. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
What about this?
when my dad passed away, my mom spent 3 months lining the entire frontage of her property, like property line to property line along the curb every garbage day with crap that my dad had. Because he just never threw anything away. He would bring pallets home from work and take them apart and hammer the nails straight and keep them all sorted as to size. And in those days, that was like the 60s. They would all be made of mahogany from
Mhm.
Southeast Asia. And so he kept all that wood and had it in a workshop in the first house that they had. And he moved all that wood. And when he passed away, he still had all that wood. He had parts for 10 different coffee makers in the basement. He didn't even use a coffee
Oh,
maker. So, my mom just got rid of it all. And I think about that. And as much as my instinct is to say, well, I don't want to throw away this molded plastic insert from this box because I might be able to use it for something. And I used to keep all that stuff. And now I hold it up and I go to my husband, look, I'm actually going to put this in the recycle because it's still so new to me not to keep all that stuff.
well, and a lot of it, like, and it's going to get used now. I still have, I bought some walnut and some purple heartwood for projects when I was back in high school.
Yeah.
I still have those boards sitting in my garage because we milled them. We got them nice and ready to be used, and I never used them.
Yeah.
So some of that wood is going to go into this aquarium.
Hmm.
I've already made that decision, so it's going to get worked in there because I'm like, that stuff has been literally sitting in storage at one of my homes over the years, or my parents' house, or in an apartment, or a townhouse, or wherever I happen to be living for
Yeah.
over 20 years now. I
Yeah.
think it's time to use it or get rid of it.
Home is
So,
where my spare wood is.
but, you know, but hey, on the plus side of things, I could sit here now and, look at that view I'm going to have.
I know, right? I was thinking that when you switched over to like that is going to be amazing.
Yep. A nice 12-foot peninsula sticking out.
Yeah.
Well, 6 foot by 6. Well, actually, the whole thing's a giant peninsula over there, but it's going to be fun to sit here. And then I'm probably going to do like some kind of little bench over there. And then my back office over there is going to completely change because um, I'll actually make my wife happy at some point because she's like, "Are you ever not going to work on folding tables?" Because
Yeah.
that's where I do my work from home, and it's where my gaming. Well, not that I do any gaming anymore, but my personal computer is,
Hmm.
and I've already got some old slabs of wood um, that were like, I don't know if they were butcher blocks or bar tops or what, but I'm gonna get a couple of, either make a table, some table legs, or at least one of them be a raised lower desk, and then make that into my office. So then I'll have roughly a 6 foot view of the SPS section of the tank and a 6 foot view of the big fish tank.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Oh, hey, Hector. Calypso's Reefs just stopping by to say hello, reefers and reef girls. Nice of you to stop by, Hector. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, we still got 14 people. Wow. Sunday afternoon. The weather here is really nice. Winding down. Kids are getting ready to go back to school. Summer's over.
oh, it's been nice over here too. Like I said, I cut my grass today, and then I got that epoxy on, and I was like, oh, I'll hop in here for a bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
be a
I'm
nice
glad you
break.
did.
Be a nice break before I start sanding again.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how long I would have been lasted if I'd been by myself. I took some pictures earlier today. I'm going to show you guys. This is how you know you're not the boss of your tank. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but lately I've been having a lot of this going on where 30050. What's that one? Oh no, that's the Montepora Hirsute I showed you guys before. Try again. I have had. Okay, where did they go now? Oh, there we go. There's that one. I have had issues with the fish just deciding they're going to darn well do what they want. And there's one. This is the very back of the tank. The Cyphastria arch. He used to be at the front, but I moved it back here because the light is better for it. And it was a little too big to be at the front. It was blocking my view. So I moved it back here. It's doing extremely well, but check it out. The sand is almost completely gone underneath it because I discovered one of the fish has decided this is where he's going to sleep at night. So the sand got kicked both ways, and on the other side of this is a Duncan frag that's fairly large that's almost buried in sand. Every morning I have to go and unbury that thing, so I'm going to have to move it. And then in the foreground, there's a piece of coral skeleton that was part of the ones I had planned to use in here, and it just didn't work out in the aquascape I ended up with. But I am going to put the invasive Yuma recordias in here that are so big and they've got all the beautiful colors on them, and try and confine them just to this piece of rock. So that's why I've kind of got it in the corner back here. So yeah, every morning I come out to this mess getting a little messier. I have not tried to put the sand back because there's no point, because the fish will just, they'll just go after it again. And then at the front, the clownfish have decided they're going to keep messing around up here. Still no eggs, even though the behavior leads me to believe there might be eggs. But yeah, they've started working on the Euro brace all the way. They're moving across the front more and somewhat down the side. So down the side, I try to keep covered a little bit. But yeah, so this is how you know when you're not the boss of your tank, and you just have to kind of live with it, right?
Fish are good for that sometimes.
And you know what's funny? It's kind of what makes it fun in a way, most of the time.
I am very much looking forward to the antics of fish in this system.
I bet.
So I cannot wait until, well, even though I'm going to do the double dividers and stuff, I do like a lot of small fish, and I'm probably going to put things like pseudochromis and wild grammas. There's always our, damsels. There's a chance they might be able to somehow slip through.
Yeah.
So I'll be waiting to see those antics unfold.
Yeah.
Or just to see, hey, what fish is doing well or not, or I don't know. There's some things I'm really fascinated to see how they work out long term.
Yeah.
In terms of like larger, seeing fish, the possibility of shoaling fish in this.
Yeah.
That's always been a dream of mine to achieve that in saltwater. So I'm really hopeful that I can get that.
Is it possible to get any look downs? Like, are they the right size to have in here, or is it still too small for them?
I have to do more reading on it. They are a fish I was thinking about in the big fish section. The only problem I would have with them is that they do like to have a lot of open, sandy areas. And it's possible that they could go into the big fish tank. I would only be concerned that they try to eat some of their smaller tank mates over time.
Yeah, this is it. I wasn't sure what their diet actually
Yeah,
was
I just have to see. I mean, they actually are captive breeding them now.
for
Um,
food, right?
I believe that's more so what along the lines of what they're doing. But I have seen for aquarium trade too.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, I've also thought about just going with some monos as well.
Yeah.
Um, they show well. They're a peaceful fish. They've got a similar, it's not the same as a look down, but they do have a more of a silvery tone to them.
And they're more manageable size, I think, when they're full grown too.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is that I have to look to see what species of look downs there are because there might be
Mhm.
some different species that stay somewhat more reasonable,
Yeah.
but still it's probably pushing on a tank this I mean even at 1400 gallons for them, they definitely can't go in the reef. Um,
No. No.
but we'll see. And I'm not going to do any kind of pilot fish because those things are just crazy big.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and that's where you really hope that if you get a juvenile, that it's correctly identified.
even when and even when they are, some they just get huge. It's just what they
Yeah.
do. So,
Yeah.
but I might see that there's in the reef section, I'm not going to be opposed to a handful of fish that get large.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not going to get a ton of them either. I want to have, you know, a variety of tangs, anthias, some wrasses.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, obviously in the big fish section, there'll be some big angels and such. But even my last tank, I mean, you get to a certain point of capacity. I thought my big fish tank at the last house was darn near perfect for when everybody was going to grow out.
Yeah.
Well, I think I only had about, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 fish in there at the most. So,
My
um,
stock list is about 45 fish of varying
yeah.
sizes, and I'm going to see if I can get the fish to actually come up to the front.
Plus, I want to see too about
Come on, fishies.
you know,
Come on,
some of them I want to get pairs or trios and, you know,
yeah, exactly. Multiples of the same fish.
hmm
But even my sailfin tang is probably as big as any I've ever seen in a big tank, and I've had him for probably 16, 17 months because I got that fish and the purple tang when they were like the size of I want to say a toonie, a $2 coin, so less than 2 inches, and they grew up together, so they're fine. But I've noticed the growth has accelerated lately, and I don't know if it's because I am feeding heavy, just bearing in mind the nutrient issues, the low nutrients that I'm getting. But man, oh man, they're growing fast. And so I might have to amend the stock list because I also want a couple of big angelfish, a pair of gold flakes, and a regal, and a pink tail trigger. So I may have to pare that back because even with the purple tang potentially getting even close to what it could possibly get, if it gets to 7 inches, that's still a big fish. And if I have multiples of fish that are 7, 8, 9 inches, let alone if I ever get a naso that can grow up to a foot, although maybe not in an aquarium, I just, it's kind of a chance to take because I want it to stay peaceful. And
Yeah, hold on one second.
I really don't want to end up with problems. Oh, hey, MB Reef. What's up? Yeah. Just chatting with Alex about stuff. I wonder if I put my filter on now, if it'll make a difference. I tried it before, but in daylight, it doesn't seem to help very much compared to evening. Oh, it gives you a little more color on the tank. We'll pop this up till Alex is
Oh,
back.
well, hey,
Oh,
Cindy, I gotta run.
okay,
Lunch just showed up at the house, so
nice.
I've been requested to come eat.
All right. Well,
So
thanks for coming by and spending the time. I appreciate it.
yeah,
And
no problem.
we'll see you again when the next time rolls around.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks for having me as always, and
All right.
hope you have a good rest of the weekend. And we'll talk later.
Yep. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye. Cool. Oh man, it's always so amazing to see what's going on with Alex's tank because it just it's mind blowing. Lorena, Cindy, a school of Bangais or Antheus would be really great to see. Oh yeah, I I thought about the big thing about Antheus is that I feel I could feed them as often as they need to be fed. And that's the only thing. If I couldn't feed them multiple times a day, I wouldn't consider them because they need that to stay healthy. Because of the low nutrients I have, I could get away with it. I do have a fish feeder that I could set on the top of the tank at the back and feed them without having to be here every time. Banggai cardinals, those were one of the first saltwater fish that my husband saw that he really, really loved. And my main concern with those would be if they started breeding and all of the sort of issues around that with the males not eating while they're carrying and that kind of thing. Because I don't want to have fish with a high risk of not living um, in this kind of a tank situation. So as much as I love Bangais, man, if I had my 29-gallon again, that's what I would get. Because the other thing is, if a fish passes away and you don't see where it is, it's there's so much space in here I can't reach that I wouldn't want that to happen and not be able to retrieve the fish. So I'm just kind of sticking with stuff that's very hardy and that I'm hoping will be peaceful and long lived in here. So we'll see what happens. I may learn lessons as I go. Some of the fish I want I've never had before, and yeah, yeah. Anybody got any questions? Because we've been going for 2 hours, and I told you about the glue. Don't use the Oohoo gel extra glue because it's not thick gel and it doesn't cure into something that's hard. It's still flexible and it doesn't cure underwater, which isn't good when you're trying to glue frags because you can't keep them out of the water the half hour or so that it takes for it to cure. It just isn't practical. Yeah, so I'm on the quest again. I'll probably buy another case of dollar store gel glue because that seems to be the one that's working for me so far. What else can I tell you? Didn't move the fish. I mentioned that at the beginning. Next weekend's live stream will be Saturday. I don't know what that date is. The third, the fourth? No, the third, maybe? Three, so yeah, I think it's the third. And it'll be 8 o'clock Eastern. And who knows? I can be optimistic. Maybe by then I'll have the other fish in here, the blenny, the tomini tang, and the magnificent foxface. But these guys are doing well, and so far so good. Crossing my fingers, because if you have a reef tank, you know that you walk in the room every day wondering what might have gone wrong overnight. And I fixed a fair number of knockdowns that I think are from actually the giant trochus snails that I have. Possibly could be the urchin. One of the urchins getting pretty big. The Caribbean pearl urchin is getting pretty large. So I don't know how strong those guys are, but they haven't worn any coral frags. So I'm not thinking they're grabbing them to carry them around. Oh, look at the purple and the yellow tang. See, they do that all the time. And they just kind of mess around with each other. There's no tattered fins or wounds or anything. So I'm not too worried about it. Okay. No questions? Let me think, what else did we do this week? In my video, I talked about the zoanthids that I finally got off of the piece of rock that I had moved into the observation tank. So now there is no rock in there. There's a whole bunch of frag racks. But the next step is to pull more rocks out of the 150 and get the frags off of them that I need. Because once all the rocks are out, we can get the fish. So it's a couple days work, but we have a pretty open week this week. So hopefully I'll be able to get some of that stuff done. So that's where we are now. And I think I'll call it. So thanks everybody for coming. We still have 12 of you here. That's great. For a Sunday afternoon, that's awesome. I hope you have a great week. Stay safe. And we will see you next weekend. As I said, Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I hope you can join me. And if not, the replay will always be there for you. All right.